mate, and welcome to Friday Facts number 389, Train Control Improvements, and I have my wonderful, very late friend, Mojo. How you doing, mate?
Hello.
Yeah,
That's a new...
You had to get that in because he's been out all day. Okay, I hear it was like a Christmas party. Okay, where he was checking out what was under Mrs. Claus's bush, because here in Australia we don't have forest fires, we have bushfires.
Yes.
Yes. So we're talking about trains. Yeah.
Yep, it's another train thingy.
Yeah, but it's the train thingy I've been waiting for. It's the train update. It's the train scheduling update. It's something we've both been wanting. Yeah.
Yes, it is. We wanted to know all this stuff that had been hanging over from several weeks ago now.
It's been hanging over for quite some time. Yeah. It's something that Factorio needed for a long time. But yes, we have train schedule interrupts, which when you read the title, you got no idea what the hell it is. Hence why it's listed in the Friday Facts. So the way you control your trains, very static at the moment. You have a list of stops, and the train just goes through them one at a time, and that's it. The only dynamic part is the wait time at each of the stops. Also, technically, there's some other conditions, but sure. There's no way to just go somewhere else dynamically based on what's going on. Not 100% true, but we're going to move along. The most obvious annoyance caused by this limitation is the problem with how to refuel trains. In 1.1, you need to make sure that every schedule has a stop which also refuels the locomotives. For example, the iron drop-off station at the main base also has to have it inserted for loading fuel. But the more distinctive routes you have, the more refueling stops you need. It's kind of boring and repetitive, and even more annoying when you want to change the type of fuel. The alternative is to have a dedicated refueling station and just put it in every schedule, but it feels very wasteful. The actual logic of what we'd like the train to do is pretty simple. Do your stuff, but only when you're running low on fuel, go to the dedicated refueling station. Since this feels very natural, we implemented a new feature in the game which allows you to do exactly this kind of logic very easily. We call them schedule interrupts. Now, before we go any further, Mojo, you and I had a disagreement about this.
Yes.
And the whole, you only have to have one station for fueling, which we both think is a perfectly valid idea most of the time.
Most of the time.
If you're running some sort of everything comes to the central base, you can have a central refueling station somewhere near the central base and have them just pop in there and get fuel when they need to, you know, with a wait condition of 1 second of idle, which is plenty for them to get the fuel shoved in and move along. Or you could have multiple refueling stations and a single train that just drives fuel and drops it off to every refueling station or every single station.
Every outpost or
fuel.
Part of the base. Every base expansion that needs fuel. And that's generally what I do is I have a refueling station at every unload, and then if there's multiple bases, you know, if it's broken up into little mini sites, then just have a little fuel train that keeps them all supplied.
And Mojo, tell me, when you decide to upgrade from coal into rocket fuel for all your trains, what do you do?
Stop supplying coal and start supplying rocket fuel.
And what happens to all the coal?
It slowly disappears over time.
And you're left with?
Rocket fuel.
See? I don't see a problem.
If transitioning fuel, I've never really understood as being a problem. You just change the fuel and then ignore it.
Ignore it. It's automated. It'll run out eventually of coal, and then it will get some other type of fuel.
Even if two-thirds of the slots are still coal, it's still like that is a situation that can happen, but it still just burns the slot with the rocket fuel in it. It's unless you plan on going like 100,000 tiles, it doesn't matter.
There have been times I've picked up a train that's been running for a couple of 50, 60, 100 hours, and yes, it has one or two slots.
Bloody coal in it.
I've had one with wood in it still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's just I had some wood on me. I threw it in the train. I set it off on its way. It's had coal for the rest of the time. Then it's had rocket fuel. It's had nuclear fuel, and then I finally picked up and it's like, oh, you've still got 30 bits of wood. What the hell am I going to do with this now? So yes, we now have edit interrupts. So we can add an interrupt to a train which will slot the orders in if the interrupt conditions are met. So this is in this case called fuel, and it says if we've got less than 50 coal, which also means that if you need to change it from coal to something else than coal, you need to change all these rather than just going, well, it's okay, we'll burn off the coal eventually, and you'll get rocket fuel or nuclear fuel or whatever it happens to be. So yes, if you've got less than 50 coal available, go to the refuel station and make sure you have over 100 coal and 5 seconds worth of inactivity, and then you're good to go. So
So the thing that immediately comes to my mind, or at least when I read it, is I hope there's a anything wildcard for fuel. So any fuel
burnable,
less than 50.
burnable, burnable less than 50.
I would assume, because it's talking about as fuel, the any condition would work fine there.
Oh, I wouldn't guarantee it, but sure. Sure, we can hope.
We can hope. I don't see any reason why any wouldn't work, but I hope any is an option.
I
Because
don't
this
know.
game currently doesn't have a burnable.
It's set
condition.
to fuel, so I would assume that fuel being a new condition is something that, yes, you could tie any to, so therefore it's looking for anything in the fuel slots to be over 50 or less than 50.
Oh, fuel means it's looking for the slots. What I mean is, instead of coal, say the any signal.
Yeah. But
So any fuel, or fuel of any less than 50.
Yeah, but we have an any symbol in Factorio currently, but also that's set to 50. What happens when you upgrade to nuclear fuel and they only held 3?
And then you would have a bad time.
Yeah. Can I have this as a percentage? Like 1/3 fuel? Go get more fuel? Yeah. So interrupts are very
slots.
Or slots, that works too. Yep. Interrupts are very simple. You specify a list of conditions to trigger the interrupt. So for target station plus weight condition, list of conditions to trigger the interrupt and a list of target stations plus weight conditions that will be added to the schedule. Whenever the train wants to leave the current station, it checks all the interrupts one by one, evaluating the interrupt conditions. If the conditions are fulfilled, the interrupt is activated and the target's passed into the current schedule as temporary stops. The available conditions are mostly familiar, set from the weight conditions: full, empty cargo, so condition, item, fluid count, blah 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 blah. We've all seen them before, with some special additions that only make sense for interrupts, I'm assuming like fuel. Is very convenient. We already implemented the concept of temporary stations, which were used only for manual setting trains somewhere. For those of you who don't know, a temporary station is like a one-time order. Once the train leaves the temporary station, the entry is removed from the schedule. The refueling example was the original motivation, but the way it works obviously had a much wider range of applications.
Do you know, something occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
They've automated temporary stops.
Yes. That's exactly what these are.
These are automated temporary stops. So instead of having to click on the map to set a temporary stop, we now have a tick.
No,
the game automatically do it for you.
Technically, they've automated a temporary station.
Yes.
So it's not a temporary stop. It has to physically be a train station. Therefore, it physically exists on the map and the network and the trains.
That's true.
Where rather than, hold down control and say, go to this point, and the train just goes to exactly that point on the GPS signal and then moves along. But I can imagine some people are going to find some interesting things they can probably do with it. But yes, so now we have generic trains. Since the interrupt could have a cargo condition, we may interrupt for each type of cargo, saving where it should be delivered. For example, if you have iron ore, you go to the iron ore drop. If you have copper ore, you go to the copper ore drop. This means...
reasonable?
Yes, it means the train with these kind of interrupts is now able to deal with whatever cargo you throw at it, so it doesn't really care if it should pick up iron or copper, whatever you support with the interrupts. At this point, there's no reason to distinguish different loading stations. As long as you use train stop limits, you can name all the loading stations the same and just use one schedule to manage all the things. Now, we've done this previously by having like all the iron ore outposts be called iron ore and then a train stop limit of 1. So only one train can go to each iron ore station, and you can turn the train stop order from 0 to 1 if it's got enough in there for it to actually load up a train or not. But they've now done it with everything. So they've basically, the first part is we've implemented Train Supply Manager. Train Supply Manager is a wonderful mod. It turned basically train stations into either passive providers or requester chests, and the trains were just like very large bots that moved A to B. But it also supported refueling perfectly. If a train got low on fuel, doesn't matter where it was on the map, it would go to its relevant fuel stop and auto pick up fuel. Doesn't matter if you changed over the fuel type as well. The generic trains is basically, we've implemented LTN.
Yes.
Without wires.
Because everyone's been begging for LTN.
Yeah, without wires, without circuit conditions, without. So we now
begging for LTN without all the wires and complication, which is basically smarter trains or TSM.
Yes.
I think smarter trains can't actually do the fueling though.
I don't know. I haven't played with smarter trains, but it does bring up a new problem, and that is if you accidentally set like not empty cargo on a train or an interrupt, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Much like LTN. So,
with new tools comes great responsibility.
With new tools comes new tools. Sorry. One of the big advantages of the system that all your trains are shared between all the possible routes. So you don't have to think about copper or trains are running low, or I don't have enough circuit trains, etc. There's just one big bag of trains, and you either have enough or not. Much like Logibots. The depot problem is all very nice, but also created a new problem, and that is the fluctuating of trains' availability based on all the unloading stations being backed up or not. This can lead to an excess of trains in the system where some of the resources or production is running low, and we need a way to deal with it. So we added a special interrupt called the destination full, which allows us to make an interrupt to send a train to a depot if all the inputs are occupied, so it doesn't block the current station. Which sounds cool, but
it's very cool.
Also means that there is a chance that your iron ore train on the very, very far outskirts of the map, several thousand tiles away from the home base, now has to drive all the way back to the depot and then wait 30 seconds to then drive all the way back out to right beside where it was because there was a second of not being needed.
Which is one of the problems with LTN. It also can be mitigated by spreading out and having multiple depots distributed around.
Yeah, but by the same token,
the depot problem, the depot bottleneck is also an issue where if you have one big depot and then all of the trains decide to go all at once, there's a bit of a traffic jam.
Yeah, by the same token, you might have multiple depots, you know, one in the center of the base, one far left, one far right. The center and the far left are both full, but there's a train on the far left that now needs a depot that now needs to go to the far right side of the base to find a depot to then possibly travel all the way back.
That's actually another problem as well with the depot system is you end up with these trains that are just constantly transient between the depots.
Yeah.
So sort of this attrition of trains that just exist to move between depots.
Yeah. So some people noticed the road depot stations in some of our screenshots. This is what they were there for. Yeah, we noticed them, but we just assumed there were either updates, and I didn't actually assume they were going to implement an LTN system. I assumed they were going to implement something that we're coming up to shortly. So interrupts are global. Initially, interrupts were specific to each schedule, but eventually we realized that this is a really good idea to be able to share the same interrupt between different schedules. We had the problem once we wanted to upgrade our fuel from our coal to rocket fuel. For instance, we have to go through each schedule and update the interrupt, which was not only a big hassle, but often resulted in some trains not being updated. So interrupts are shared globally, identified by the name. So when you edit an interrupt, it changes it for all the trains with that interrupt, which made it much more convenient and much less error prone. So back to our original example, the one that's called fuel or refuel, it should be just a change coal to rocket fuel. And
rocket fuel?
Yep, and rather than 50 to be 10? 10 and 20?
And yes. And then it's done for all of them.
Yes, except for that one train that's being fed coal directly from a coal outpost.
From the coal outpost.
Because it's right there and it's convenient. Yeah. It's that first train you set up that it was going to get coal, so you just plugged it straight into the coal outpost and it never got set up properly. And yeah. So then to further complicate things, we added an interrupt in an interrupt. Normally when an interrupt is activated, other interrupts won't be able to interfere with it until it's finished, but for some specific cases, this is too limiting. So we add another special interrupt condition. It's called an in-interrupt. It allows the interrupt to trigger whilst another interrupt is in progress, which clears the original interrupt and replaces it with new interrupt targets. I hope there is not a drinking game for every single time I say interrupt. There are some very specific cases where this is crucial to have, but it's on a planet we didn't reveal yet, so more on that later. It's also going to be very, very important for mods. Anything like where you have a trash station, a specific station where you a specific resource that makes a waste product that you need to deal with, having that in interrupt to make sure, hey, once this gets over 50%, a train definitely comes here now and picks it up. Yes. Yes.
The train's got to be interrupted to do it. I'm actually very interested to play around with the interrupts to do that kind of trash supply stuff. I think it's going to have some interesting options.
Interesting options and interesting changes. I'm willing to bet the next one is also something you found with your mass use of trains. So, reservation upgrade. All the most advanced interrupts schedule systems heavily depends on the train stop reservation limit. This prevents all the trains in your system from trying to go to one stop. But there's one little problem with the system, which could even cause traffic jams and deadlocks, and which was made much more important with the generic schedules. The problem is that once the train decides to leave a station, it instantly clears the reservation of the train limit while still physically blocking the stop. This lets another train start its journey towards the stop, while there might not be enough space to wait without blocking the main line. So we fixed it so the train will only give up its reservation spot once it leaves the block with the train stop. I'd be interested to know if other people encounter this problem in 1.1 as well. So I have encountered this problem, and we fixed it by making sure there was enough room off the main line to park another train.
Yes, that's pretty much how you do it. It's not a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah. We just go, look, the devs didn't think about this problem. It's okay. We got train stop limits. It's nice. It's a great, convenient feature, but there's one little problem. We'll fix this by just having a bit more track allocated. Problem solved.
I mean, if everyone's played Open TTD and you get into the sort of the extreme end of train systems, you have an input buffer and an output buffer that the trains can move into and out of. As they move into and out of the station.
That's when you're looking for really high throughput train systems in Factorio.
Oh, yeah. In Open TTD, which is pretty wild.
I haven't seen super high throughput train stations train station throughput in Factorio since 15 or 16 before we got nuclear fuel. Yeah. I think that's the last time I saw it, where there was actually dedicated lanes where trains could accelerate to get up to speed before joining the main line. You know, that's the last time I saw it.
Oh, yeah, those two. Yeah, that is another thing that's that you do in Open TTD.
In Factorio, you just give everybody nuclear fuel. It solves the problem.
Yes, and then they all accelerate at the same rate.
They all accelerate really fast, so it really doesn't matter if they have to stop. So train groups. This is the one that I've been waiting for a very long time. So,
oh yeah, this is something I've been wanting since I started playing the game.
Yeah, the lack of train groups and the ability to edit multiple schedules at once was annoying, but it wasn't that important before interrupts, because you didn't really need to update, tweak the existing schedules that much. I choose to disagree. An awful lot. But
yeah, I think the problem more is that they never needed to update a lot of trains until they started working on the expansion.
The devs have never needed to.
Or specifically Kvorax.
Yeah.
The Kvorax clone and this is talking.
It's either or both, yeah. But with interrupts and more generic trains, you need to update the schedules and interrupts of all existing trains at the same time. So this obviously had to be done. The approach is similar to what we did with other group changes in the 2.0 update, like logistic groups and interrupts. So now we can have 11 trains for iron ore. And when we add a train to that group, it just gets the same scheduling orders as all the other iron ore trains. And we can also, add a station very easily to all 11 at once. Yup. But very importantly, it ignores any temporary stops that is part of interrupts, because they're temporary and they're part of interrupts. So it just gets a main schedule. Also means that if you jump into a train and hijack it with a temporary stop by, telling an iron ore train to take me here and then drop me off and then continue on your way, it won't break the schedule because it's a temporary stop at a temporary stop, not a temporary station. That's entirely different. Yep.
Yes.
Now we also have train stations and groups in the overview, which is going to be handy. And notice how they have 0 trains assigned to no groups. Yep. Every single train they have is in
has their own group.
Yeah.
Especially artillery.
Yeah, 2's not enough, I don't think.
Yeah, it needs more.
Yeah.
Double it, and then double it again.
Either that, or they're not long enough.
Or double the number of stations, then double the number of trains, then double this number of stations again, and then double the number of trains.
No.
Sure.
Artillery trains, you can have like 4, 4 medium-length trains that's acceptable to patrol around the outside of the base, or 1. If you have 1, I expect 1 deals with everything within range and then some. 4 is for a patrol route to just, make sure that the biters are pushed back.
Just keep the fringes under in check.
Yeah, 2 is an odd number. Sorry, devs, you've done something wrong. So what you now you can place down a new train, select the group you want, and off it goes. But if you have too many in one type, you could just reassign the train's group and turn it from an iron ore train to a copper train without hunting down an existing train to copy paste from. When you also add a new interrupt to handle a new item type, it'll be added to all the group and everything will just work without any needless train schedule bureaucracy.
It just works.
It just works until it doesn't. So, auto color based on destination. So, Mojo, I have to give it up. This is exactly how you said it was going to be.
Hooray!
I win the day. Sure. I was hoping I would have a bit more configuration, but it turns out they looked at that and gave up. So, another thing teased and noticed in the previous Friday Facts, we'd like to color our trains based on what they deliver, but with a generic system, the train can carry anything, and static coloring wasn't doing the trick. Initially, we wanted to somehow add coloring to the schedule GUI, but it would be a hassle where every station needs to have yet another UI element in the GUI, which is already not that simple, so we realized much more natural approach is available. So we had a simple checkbox on by default to the locomotive color widget to change the color based on the destination. So it means that every single train station, you can change the color of?
Yes, as you've always been able to.
And then the train will get colored that on the way there? Which...
As soon as it sets itself to that stop, it changes its color to that stop.
Yep. And the devs are horrible by making their copper ore trains go to a black train stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one thing that's unknown is what happens if you have multiple locos. Do they all change at once, or do the outer ones, or the inner ones? I assume it's just all of them.
But I assume it's just all of them. But more important question, what happens if you're one of those weird people that has wagon, loco, wagon? I'm assuming it changes just the locos in the middle.
It changes just the locos. It'll change the... You can't color wagons in base game.
No.
Also, what happened to the crossfade? Because in this animation, I don't see a crossfade.
No, there was definitely a crossfade earlier, so I don't know.
There was definitely a crossfade earlier. It was a little slow, but it definitely had one.
Oh, no. One of them had a crossfade, one of them had a much shorter crossfade. It made it all that more confusing. I'm willing to bet there might have been some movie magic with the when it was seen first time round. Yeah. So, conclusion. We've been asked to do something like logistics trains many times. Schedule interrupts provide a much more generic system where logistics trains are just one more thing you can build from it. For example, you can have a system where you let stops decide where to send the train using circuit conditions and interrupts. Sounds like a pain in the ass, but somebody's going to implement it on day one. It's also much more approachable because you use interrupts for just refueling or something simple while still keeping the normal schedules. We've been playing with this for quite some time as one of the features we couldn't play without at this point. To clarify, this is a core engine feature, which means it'll be available for everybody with the 2.0 base game update. So that means everybody's going to get it.
Feature.
Yep, everybody's going to get it no matter what. We didn't stop there. More improvements related to trains prepared for 2.0. We'll have to leave them for another day.
Hopefully next week, but probably not.
They should have left. They should have said, "I'm sorry, we left them at the station."
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a chance for a pun or something in there. So,
no, right?
Mojo, we've both been waiting for this.
Unfortunately, they left it at the station as well.
Yeah, they did. So we've both been waiting for this for a long time.
Yes, we have.
Schedules. No. So my question for you, okay? Given that we now have the choice between schedules, where we could have like all that copper ore trains, all that copper plate trains, or electronics trains, blah 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 blah, or we could go nuts and have a full LTN network where every train is just a train, and it's just going to go pick up whatever you want, whenever you want, and maybe park at a depot when it's not being used. Which way are you leaning?
I've always leaned towards having trains dedicated to a specific cargo. I definitely will try out fully universal trains, but the network efficiency does go down having fully generic trains.
So I could see Fluids. Okay, fluids. Assuming you're just moving oil, it's going to be a dedicated schedule.
Yes.
Assuming you're moving ore, so copper ore, iron ore, stone, coal, I could definitely see an LTN style.
There's potential, but I've always found that you tend to need a dedicated amount, at least a dedicated minimum number for both. And it's always a
For
little off the top.
moving around ore.
Yeah, for moving around ore from outposts.
Look, my answer for that one is I'm just going to have too many. I'm just going to have too many because they'll park at a depot.
Like if you have 100 iron and 100 copper, like one more here and one less there doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
You really need like 120 and 120.
Yeah. And I think having my iron ore trains be able to do copper and my copper ore trains do iron, depending on what's in supply and demand, it's probably going to be okay. But I think everything else, I think I need to stick to a schedule.
Yeah, stick to a more dedicated schedule.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, we don't know how this interacts with off-world bases.
As
because
in?
Our only understanding of this is on a single world, single planet, single surface.
Yeah, but trains don't go...
How we've always built it.
Trains don't go multi-surface.
Yes.
But spaceships do.
Not counting that singular mod that I think Muppet did, with where the train went into an underground surface to make underground trains.
No, that went through many different iterations, and now it happens with the power of auto magic. Don't question it.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
it's
as I'm saying, yeah, I think having fully generic trains might be beneficial for an off-world base.
So technically, as far as we understand it, our space stations, our space platforms are technically trains. Big square trains that fly through asteroid fields and shoot things on the way past.
What I mean is having generic trains on Vulcananus might be beneficial because it means there's a lot more autonomy available. So if something backs up, then another train can fill the need, which otherwise you would have to go there and build a new train, or at least have to map you there to build another train.
Possibly. I think I could definitely see, if we're talking about the space platforms, I could definitely see you're probably going to want a couple of autonomous ones that are going to do stuff and things, and preferably not have an option for them to fly home to a depot. Just a very long wait condition with an interrupt. Please wait here for 6,000 seconds. But hopefully,
you're thinking about having the orders for the platforms as well.
Yeah, because they're technically a train schedule.
Yes.
From what we've seen so far, it's a train schedule. So
run out of gun turret ammo, return home.
You probably don't. Probably stay still. Probably don't fly anywhere. Probably request some, maybe. Probably don't move. Not if you want it to arrive in one piece. But yeah, I could definitely see universal when it comes to the space platforms. Probably some dedicated ones for actually, moving new resources out to you building on a new planet. These are my 3 that I use to request more belt, more this, more that, more rocket parts, more whatever. But yes, I can see pros and cons to both. But I do think the old method of let's have a single train stop going to wall supply 1, wall supply 2, wall supply 3, wall supply 89, wall supply 93 is gone.
Oh, that's already gone with the train stop limits. But there's I was actually saying before we started that my train supply and trash still need unique train stop names because of the way it works. Because any of those outposts can request any type of item. You can tell it to request anything, and so it needs still needs a unique name for the train to eventually be able to find its way to the right stop.
So yeah, yours is unique as they're all called supply something, but there is a chance...
Supply nuclear, supply power, supply red circuits, supply green circuits.
But there is a chance that one supply might be requesting artillery shells, one might be requesting blue belt, and the supply train shows up and picks up artillery shells, and then if they were all called the same, it goes to the closest supply, which happens to need blue belts, and then doesn't overload anything.
Artillery. And then it just deadlocks itself going, or it doesn't deadlock itself,
just
but it means
jumps
it
back
gets
and
stuck
forth.
in an infinite
Yep.
loop. Whereas currently, by having all the unique names, eventually it'll find itself at the right place and unload those artillery shells.
Yeah, and then go back and pick up blue belt and go on off to wherever needs blue belt. So, yes,
It's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it's surprisingly good at sorting itself out in the
look,
end.
with games like Factorio, automation is key. If you automate something, it doesn't have to do it well. It's like having a robot vacuum. They do a crap job.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. But
They do it 30 times, and it's great. It's great.
It's still better than nothing.
Yeah. It's better than me going around with a vacuum once a week, because they're going to do it 5 times in the same week, and they're going to do a shit job every single time. But 5 of them looks better than me doing it once a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is it for Friday Facts number 389, 390 next week. Mojo predictions.
Maybe trains. I'm trying to think what else we. Yeah, it's not trains. This is unlikely.
No.
I'm trying to think what else we don't know about that's been teased. Maybe a new ore, or I think we might be a little bit early for another planet.
Biters or combat?
Maybe.
Biters or combat?
Biters or general combat? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see
Haven't heard
combat.
anything about combat yet.
Combat, biters, either or. We can maybe find out where the space squid belongs from Friday Facts 3000 ago when we teased this 4 years ago. At least it feels like it.
Something like that, yeah.
Yep.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I'm thinking we've got a teaser for trains. We've got some more information for trains. Biters or weaponry. One of the two. Yeah, that's all I'm going to go with.
I think combat would be a good one. Maybe some more info on science as well.
New researchers?
New researchers. Oh, that's still tied to another planet.
That's tied to another planet. I don't think we're going to get it.
It is possible we might get another planet, but I'm not hopeful.
Nah, because they said Vulcanus is the most developed out of all of them.
Most developed, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think. That's why I think it's a long shot.
Yeah, unless it's going to be some tie back to Vulcanus. No, combat's my bet. All right, that's it. We're leaving it here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in next week's Friday Facts, which is hopefully not nearly as late as this week's Friday Facts.
Hopefully.
Right, that's it. We're out. Bye.
Bye-bye.